Earthlings. I'm here today with my first ever cartoon review. Today we're going to talk about As Told by Ginger. I've spent the last 2 months watching the show and taking notes, and I've come up with a video essay to share with you all about my thoughts and a review of the cartoon. Hope you enjoy! As Told by Ginger is about a middle school girl named Ginger who, along with her friends, try to climb the social ladder in an endless quest for coolness. Their avenue for coolness often comes in the form of a popular girl named Courtney, who takes a liking to Ginger and tries to include her in her plans. Over the course of the show, an unlikely bond is created between these two girls, even though their friends don't get along. The series takes place in the fictional town of Sheltered Shrubs in Connecticut. Other towns in the show have similar alliterative names: Protected Pines, Brittle Branches, and Heathered Hills. The subplot of each episode is usually focused on Ginger's brother Carl and his escapades with his best friend Hoodsy. The episode sometimes ends with Ginger writing about the episode's lesson in her diary. Unlike most Nicktoons, the show is aired on the Teen Nick block. Ginger Fatley is misguided and easily led astray by the opportunity for popularity and coolness, but she has good intentions and a knack for doing the right thing. She usually realizes the errors of her ways and apologizes or stands up for what she truly believes in. While she can stand up for others, she struggles to stand up for herself. For example, in episode 13, she gets suspended for something she didn't do, and instead of fighting back, she spends a large amount of the episode crying in her room. She grapples with her identity a lot. There's an episode where she plays Courtney for a day and ends up shit-talking Ginger as Courtney. Ginger also gets interested in boys pretty easily: Darren, Ian, Sasha, Jake, who's 2 years older than her, and Fred. I'd say her biggest character flaw is that she forgives her friends too easily and often tries to act more mature than she really is.
I got totally wrapped up in being PC. You're just not used to having a man in your life, Lois. You may have to learn to be a little more flexible. Wish I could blame a twister or a hurricane or my pesky sister.
Macie Lightfoot is the better of Ginger's two best girlfriends. She often acts as the voice of reason. Of the main characters, I think she may be the most comfortably self-realized. A great example of this comes in the episode Come Back Little Seal Girl, where she goes through with performing an act perceived as embarrassing by her peers even after her best friends ditch her. She isn't afraid to be herself. Her parents are somewhat neglectful. This is exemplified in the episode Family Therapy, where her parents straight up forget her birthday. She tends to be soft-spoken, even when speaking her mind. The biggest problem I saw in Macie is that she's easily swayed into doing things she doesn't want to do, even when she knows they're wrong.
Cool? Do I look like a girl who's concerned with what's cool? I think not. And remember, no means no. Good news! The doctors will see me! Great! When? 10 weeks from tomorrow. What? You had to schedule an appointment to see your own parents?
Dodie Bishop is the worst character in the show by far. Throughout the entire series, she repeatedly demonstrates that she has no personal code of ethics. This is evident from a very early point in the series, when she finds a list of lice-affected students and immediately tries to read out the list of students over the loudspeaker purely because she wants attention. She cares about popularity and others' perception of her more than literally anything else. Over the course of the show, I never saw her express empathy for others. When Ginger and Darren start dating, Dodie acts like a complete raging bitch anytime she sees them displaying affection. She literally calls Ginger her territory. She ends up teaming up with Mipsy and Miranda to attempt to ruin Ginger and Darren's relationship and roping Macie into it too. And then one episode later can't stop talking about how great Darren is at a party. Dodie is easily the worst person in the entire show, and anytime an episode revolved around her, its purpose was just to highlight how much of a shitty person she is. I don't know why Ginger keeps her around. Anytime something good happens to Ginger, Dodie is upset and jealous that it didn't happen to her, instead of being happy for her friend.
You were pretty good today, Ginger. Maybe you'll get to play the hotel maid who cleans my room. Maybe. Who's playing Ellie? Ginger? Dodie, you're playing the hotel maid. How is this possible? How did she get in? 5 kids in the whole entire country and they choose Ginger? It doesn't add up. It's not like she invented a cure for the common cold or something. This was a big year for Ginger, Dodie. Macie, stop. You know,
I really expected that my best friend would try to be happy if something great like this actually happened to me, but since that isn't the case, the last thing I intend to do is stand here and try to convince her that I deserve it. What I don't deserve is to be treated like this, Dodie.
Ginger's back. Food fight!
That's major.
Darren Patterson is the only prominent male character of the cast in Ginger's grade. In the first 2 seasons, he's a good-natured, calm and collected dude and kind of sits in the background. He has an older brother, Will, who he's not close to, and he lives in his shadow in the earlier episodes. He wears headgear in the first season, and in the second season when he gets it removed, he becomes instantly more popular and cool. He remains a secondary character for the most part until the 3rd season when he and Ginger begin dating, and during that relationship he becomes a main character and one of my favorite parts of the series. One of my favorite scenes in the whole show occurs when Darren finally tells off Dodie for all of her selfish behaviors. Unfortunately, he becomes a ghost of his former self after gaining popularity on the football team in high school, abandoning his old friends, including Ginger, and becoming a selfish idiot jock. His high school redesign is hilariously different from his middle school appearance, and I think the designers went a bit too far with it.
Darren, you're hot.
Well, I don't know about hot. Maybe lukewarm.
But now, all you ever do is defend Ginger, no matter what.
Ginger doesn't even know I'm here. I came for you. You know, you say Ginger doesn't care about the BFFs anymore. But what about you? You only care about yourself.
It's a big day for me. So you know what? I'm gonna go hang out with the people who support me. Hey, wait up! Wait up, guys, wait up!
Despite remembering Courtney as the antagonist of this show, after watching it again, I don't think she was evil at all. When we meet her, Courtney Grippling is the most popular girl in school, and her family is very rich. Her affluence makes her out of touch pretty often. There's an episode where she overhears Ginger and her friends discussing having a slumber party, and then becomes so obsessed with this new concept of a slumber party that she holds her own. She's very self-absorbed, so much so that her talent show performance involves a bunch of friends wearing Courtney masks while dancing to a song about her. She does seem to genuinely care for Ginger, and I don't think her interest in her is malicious at all. Actually, in season 3, she directly goes against her friends, who she finally realizes are evil, to help Ginger in a few different situations, including when the bullies try to ruin Ginger's relationship with Darren. There are lines sprinkled in alluding to her parents having issues, which is confirmed in the finale when her father is arrested for fraud. I was disappointed that there weren't more episodes diving into Courtney's character and her relationship with Ginger later on in the series.
Ooh, what is this, a robot?
No, Courtney, that's a vacuum cleaner. It's used for cleaning.
Fascinating. Ginger, there's so much you can teach me. Denial. Perfect. It always works for Mama and Daddy.
How come we never hug Miranda?
Ew, Courtney.
Courtney? What's wrong?
Well, you're not the only one with problems, okay? Things have been really hard for me, too, lately.
You'd gotta be kidding.
Oh, you didn't think I was just going to sit back and let you corner the problem child market, did you?
Courtney.
Yes?
As heart-wrenching as this story is, maybe we could discuss something else. Like, perhaps, your perpetual need to be the center of attention?
Despite thinking her character has good intentions, I still have to acknowledge that Courtney is a complete brat. Miranda is Courtney's jealous best friend. Over the course of the show, I observed no character development in her. Throughout the series, she's shitty to everyone who isn't Courtney. There's an episode where she dates Darren and breaks up with him purely because she's missing out on gossip. She's shallow and bitchy, and human moments rarely come out of her. She does some downright evil shit to Ginger, and it's never really explained why she hates her so much, other than Courtney taking an interest in her. This includes teasing Ginger when her mom works as a maid, vandalizing a statue and blaming Ginger in order to steal her lead role in a play, laughing at Ginger for being homeless, making fun of Ginger when everyone thinks she's suicidal, and even working with another evil bitch named Mipsy to get Ginger permanently transferred to an art school far away from them. Even in the finale of the entire series, she's pulling the same shit, trying to instill fear about Ginger's stepfather. She has absolutely no redeeming qualities, and I think the writers should have tried harder to give this character some dimension.
Will be eligible for suspension.
Maybe you should try spending some time there, Ginger. Then we wouldn't have to see you for a few days. Man, if I'd have known you were, like, clinically depressed, I might have gone a little easier on you.
You guys, this poem isn't about me. It's made up, you know, like fiction.
I mean, there are days I really wished you'd disappear. But I had no idea you felt that way, too. Did you hear? The ambulance just left with a girl who watched this in the class before us. She went into shock.
Nice try, Miranda, but Zorsky told us it was a geometry class accident.
Those protractors should be outlawed, if you ask me. My mistake. It's a secret. Yours, in fact. And if you don't do exactly as I say, I'll reveal your deepest, hairiest secret to the whole school.
Don't move. Ginger will be right back.
Carl Foutley is Ginger's brother. He's an eccentric and interested in science and sleuthing, also an atheist. In the first 2 seasons, he mostly serves as the comedic subplot with his antics, but near the end of season 2, he meets a really weird girl named Noelle, and we start to see some character development from him and a more human side between that and his reaction to his teacher dying. His arch nemesis is Courtney's snobby and wimpy younger brother, Blake Grippling, and the subplot often revolves around their feuding. Later in the series, Carl demonstrates a lot of maturity and compassion for his mother and sister in situations like his sister getting sick, searching for houses with his mom, and getting to know his mom's fiancé.
How can I punish you? You've already washed my car 4 times this month.
All I did was try to create an underwater farm to help feed the whales.
That is the most ridiculous excuse I've ever heard. I didn't understand it. Your sister Ginger was a model student.
You ain't lived till you sampled my proprietary feet loaf with trashed potatoes and fried bunions. She was a fan of entertaining penguins, the most absurd reference book of all time. Don't you see? She was like my soulmate. Carl! I gotta do something. I gotta get her back.
But personally, I wouldn't think of embarrassing my sister. Although, given the way her program's been working out, she's doing a pretty good job of that all by herself.
Hoods, blood is thicker than payback. I'm all yours, Georgie. Living proof my sister's program is working.
Dodie Bishop is Carl's best friend and Dodie's younger brother. I find him to be one of the weaker characters in the series. Throughout the show, he never shows a backbone and mainly serves to be a sidekick for Carl, only speaking up to whine about not wanting to do something, but going through with it anyway.
But Carl, how can a couple of filthy boys like us get a leg up on qualified professionals wearing snug purple coveralls? Like Kit?
Simple. The way you always compete in a crowded marketplace. Hit 'em with a gimmick.
Hoodsie, I have some terrible news. Nana Bishop died tonight.
Okay. Thanks for letting me know. We have to practice now.
Hoodsie, our grandmother died. We have to go home, now!
Fine.
I'm sorry, Hoods.
So am I. This is a total waste of a perfectly good Saturday night.
Ginger's mom, Lois Foutley, is the strongest matriarch I've ever seen in a kid's cartoon. I love this character. She's honest and responsible and handles what life throws at her in a very matter-of-fact way. I think she really provided entertainment for adults watching the show with their kids, from her hilarious quips like this.
Why do I bother to buff and wax?
To realistic and relatable small details like groaning when she gets up off the floor. She unsuccessfully dates a couple men over the course of the show, but she's a single mom for most of it, until she starts dating Dave, a doctor at the hospital she's a nurse at. The relationship is extremely positive, and he even embraces her children as his own, to the point where Carl refers to Dave as his real dad, and they all move in together, after Lois and Dave get married in the finale.
Ginger, think about it. You don't have to explain anything to anyone.
I don't?
No, why should you? Let him talk. Rubber glue back to you.
Ginger's stepping into your territory. Please tell her you're the only one who's allowed to make my life miserable.
No can do, Carl. This is between you two, and I'm not gonna tell Ginger how to do the job she was elected to do. I'm just lucky the school's not charging me for your little stunt.
Lois, remain calm. You're having an episode.
Have fun, but not too much fun.
Agreed.
Mwah.
The relationship between Ginger and her best friends can be kind of strange sometimes. When Ginger gets invited to Courtney's slumber party, she dumps babysitting Carl and Hoodsey onto her friends, and even though babysitting them is a nightmare, they're okay with it because they're happy that she gets to go to the popular girls' sleepover. Over the course of the show, the three of them say they are loyal friends to each other, but the actions of Macie and Dodie prove otherwise. When Ginger and Darren start dating, they act like her being interested in spending time with him is a bad thing, and assume she's ignoring them to spend time with him. They go on to try to ruin her relationship with Darren by telling him lies about her calling a guy she liked at art school. Ginger finally realizes that Dodie is a shitty person and Macie can't think for herself, and I thought their relationship was going to change after that event. But right afterward, in the next episode, Dodie's calling them BFFs again. Ginger seems to still care for Dodie and has good intentions, but as always, Dodie acts selfishly and puts herself before everyone else, wanting Ginger to cancel Darren's birthday party all because she can't attend. But for some reason, Ginger once again forgives her behavior and resolves that their friendship can be sustained even if they all have boyfriends, if they all put in the extra effort. I think the writers should have gone in a different direction with this friendship near the end of the show. In other areas, the show did a great job of depicting situations realistically, but they failed here. In real life, you don't get to treat your friends like shit and then go back to the way you were before, remaining best friends forever. The friends I mistreated in my young life aren't my friends anymore, because that's how life actually works. The girls should have gone their separate ways and been okay with that, because that's what growing up is. The relationship between Ginger and Courtney is interesting and the focal point of the early episodes. Courtney often puts Ginger in situations that she doesn't want to be in without really considering how Ginger feels. But in the later episodes, she sides with Ginger instead of her popular friends because her character development results in her having a tendency for doing the right thing. They're eventually close enough that Ginger can call Courtney for advice and they can talk candidly. She definitely develops a weird fixation with Ginger over the course of the show. In the third season, Ginger goes to art school for a semester, and Courtney misses her so much that she hangs with Macie and Dodie just to soak up as much of Ginger as possible. However, this works in everyone's favor because they become actual friends, and Courtney ends up finding out about Miranda and Mipsy's plan to get Ginger transferred out of sheltered shrubs forever and helping her get out of the situation. I was disappointed that Courtney was not more present around the end of the series, since their friendship had developed quite a lot. I at least wish the writers had given Courtney a slightly larger role in the finale, given how many problems Ginger was juggling. The relationship between Ginger and Darren is friendly, with a small romantic blip in the first 2 seasons. But after Ginger goes away to an art school fellowship for a semester, he finds himself missing her and realizes that he loves her. When Ginger goes looking for him in a winter storm, she realizes she may have feelings for him too. When she finally finds him, he confesses to her quite abruptly and they kiss. After she returns home, they start going everywhere together, ignoring bullies, and she wears his shirt over her clothes. Darren ends up being the only person on Ginger's side besides Courtney after her shady friends try to break them up. When she returns to Camp Caprice, she almost cheats on Darren, and then realizes that she really does love him. But after all of that, their relationship goes to shit and turns incredibly toxic, with both of them failing to communicate with each other even though they're next-door neighbors, and their bedroom windows face each other's. Darren dumps Ginger for another girl he's been hanging out with at football practice, and Ginger's so hung up on him that she squanders a relationship with her bandmate Orion, who I thought was a much better fit for her artsy personality. After all this bullshit, even though we last saw Ginger kissing Orion at Lois's wedding with Darren looking regretful in the background, the final scene of the show has Darren feeding Ginger's baby. Because Nickelodeon always has to have the 2 best friends fall in love at the end. This pissed me off so much. It was extremely evident that their relationship wasn't a good fit. I thought Ginger was going to end up with Orion, or on her own in the flash forward, demonstrating that you can't treat people like garbage and expect them to still love you, but the writers once again failed in this regard. One of the most real and deep parts of the show is the Foutleys' relationship with the absent patriarch, Jonas. In an episode entitled Hello Stranger, early on in the series, Ginger writes a poem directed to her father for the arts fair at school. Though he's invited, he never shows. The end of that episode doesn't have a journal entry, because there's no lesson to learn from having an absent parent. It's just reality. Later at a holiday party, the father stops by and gives peanuts to Carl, but he's allergic to them. This highlights just how absent he is. We find out that he abandoned the family right after Carl was born, and that's why Carl refuses to acknowledge him as his father. Later in the series, Ginger goes on a walk with her dad and his dog to talk about family, demonstrating that the relationship has improved. We start to see Jonas show up more often, like at Ginger's graduation, which totally made me and Ginger cry, and even being present during Lois's wedding. He's a shitty parent working a bunch of odd jobs to get by, and his apartment totally implies that he's a stoner, but he does demonstrate that he cares about his kids and Lois later in the show. My favorite episodes of the show were Wicked Game and A Lesson in Tightropes. Wicked Game tells the story of when everyone tried to break up Darren and Ginger, and A Lesson in Tightropes tells the story of their breakup and Ginger's near-death experience with her appendix bursting. That's right, the main character of the show straight up almost dies in this episode. A Lesson in Tightropes is, in my opinion, the strongest episode of the show. Carl turns to the big man upstairs, even though he's an atheist. Darren grapples with the guilt of ending their relationship to date someone else. Ginger gets a whole new perspective after her near-death experience, and Lois grapples with her status as a good parent after catching her daughter's illness just before it was too late. If you're going to watch any episode of this series and want to know why I think it was underappreciated and should be taken seriously, watch A Lesson in Tightropes. The show was nominated for 3 Primetime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Animated Program. It's an episodic series in that there's usually a new conflict and subplot each episode, but the show is based in story and character progression, so viewers will benefit from watching the show chronologically. Artistically, this is linked to the other Klasky Csupo works. It's rooted in reality, but there are a few moments where it deviates and something trippy or ridiculous happens. The show sometimes shifts into psychedelic or dreamlike sequences, a strong departure from the stark reality of the show's regular fare. The only ongoing unrealistic component of the show is Carl's girlfriend Noelle having telekinetic powers, which was never really explained. While I got used to the purposefully weird and ugly style after a few episodes, I remember not liking it when I was younger. The backgrounds in the show often give off a retro feel with coordinated colors. Most of the background music is guitar-based, but occasionally there's a song kind of painfully sung by Ginger's voice actor summarizing the episode, or a random pop song sung by Cree Summers, Miranda's voice actor. There's even an end theme about diamonds being expensive for the episode where Lois gets engaged. Ginger is in a band near the end of the series, and they have a song or two as well. I enjoyed the random references thrown in the show, my favorite being the unexplained Twin Peaks tribute scene between Carl Hoodsey and Noelle. That's another moment where I think they were making the scene for an adult and not for kids, because there's no way in hell kids are gonna understand a Twin Peaks reference. But this was put out in the early 2000s, so Twin Peaks was still a pretty relevant piece of pop culture. When I saw that Twin Peaks scene, I paused it to write down the timestamp, and I audibly gasped. I love Twin Peaks, and I could not believe there was a Twin Peaks reference in this innocuous but serious cartoon that I had been watching for months. This series is really good, but there are some things that they could have done better. The show made a few mistakes that ended up being the only things I remembered from it as an adult before watching. A few that stick out to me in particular are the episode where they make makeup out of crayons. I followed the example and did it myself. There was also an episode where Courtney stuffed her swimsuit top, and I definitely tried that too. Perhaps the most pervasive of all the errors they made is the scene where Ginger's writing something in a car and a bunch of papers fly out the window. I realized when watching it as an adult that it's the reason I hate driving with the windows down, and that's not even a thing that happens in real life. I hadn't seen this show in maybe 15 years, and I still had a fear that was born from an episode. Kids can sometimes have a hard time remembering the repercussions of an action in a show. They're more likely to monkey see, monkey do than to learn from what a character did wrong, unless the lesson of the episode is stated outright. And after the first few episodes, the show did that a lot less frequently. There are a few episodes in each season that feel like filler, and don't move the story or characters along at all. There's an episode early on in the series where Carl's in a relationship with an old woman named Maud, who dies at their dinner table. So many things wrong with that. So many things. Carl is not older than 12 years old. He's in a relationship with an old woman, and she dies. This is like the third episode, maybe, of the show, and an old woman dies. Carl's girlfriend, who is an old woman, dies at dinner. Additionally, the dialogue tends to be more presentational rather than conversational, but I think that can be chalked up to it being a kids' show. The biggest flaw that I saw in the series, though, is how often Ginger and her friends mistreat each other without ever truly apologizing or getting closure about any of it on screen. Dodie especially treats Ginger very poorly throughout the show, enough that any person in a real-life situation would have dumped her ass by the time high school ended. Darren and Ginger don't treat each other right during the relationship either, but in the final scene you see Dodie and Darren both at Ginger's book reading, which is just absolutely ridiculous. I'll say it again. You cannot treat the people in your life like garbage and expect them to stay around. They even directly sort of state that you should keep people around even if they drive you crazy or if they treat you badly in the episode where Dodie's grandma dies. The end of the episode has Ginger writing in her diary about a lesson, and she says something about how even though family drives you fucking crazy, you should cherish your time with them anyway. That's not true. If your family treats you like shit, you have no obligation to talk to them ever again. On the flip side, there's a very strong character progression for most of the main cast, and the show is based in reality, which establishes empathy and relatability. The episodes have continuity, which rewards the viewer for watching the show chronologically. The characters change clothes in every episode and have established wardrobes that they cycle through, and they go through physical and mental changes such as Darren's headgear removal, Ginger growing out her hair, and Lois losing weight for the wedding. The character designs from season 1 to 3 are drastically different, and that's rare. Each of the main characters grows into their own interests in high school and spend less time together, indicating character change with age and growing up. I did laugh quite a lot watching this show, but humor wasn't its focus. Instead, this show was based in real life and showed human emotion and conflict in a way that was very uncommon for cartoons in the era. It's a very intelligent show that deals with real issues like broken families, addiction, death, atheism versus religion, suicide, and relationships in a way that set a good example instead of having the characters flailing wildly and acting in damaging ways without repercussions, which is something we see often in live-action shows about adults. Friends. Parental figures are actually involved in the kids' lives. Lois often gets involved to rescue Carl or Ginger from situations they get themselves into, despite working full-time as a nurse and being a single mom, and we get to know the other adults in the show pretty well too. I really applaud the show for avoiding the trope of the absent parent. Even though it has its issues, which I did my best to highlight throughout this video, the show has a unique spirit, and I think it was one of the most intelligent and underappreciated cartoons of its time. I was unable to find a definitive reason for why production ended, but it's easy to infer why. After a successful and popular first season, the show suffered from schedule changes in the second season, resulting in a decline in popularity. Not to mention, most of the second season's episodes lacked the quality writing the earlier episodes had, and felt more like filler than episodes presenting character or plot development. Though the stories became more compelling in the third season, most of its episodes weren't even aired. Some of them didn't even air in America until years later in 2016, and this show ended in 2004. The creator Emily Kapnick has stated that she thinks it would be fun to put a spin on it. While Nick executives originally did not want the final episode of the show to be conclusive in case they wanted to bring it back, the possibility of a reboot seems very small. There was a rumor in 2016 that the show was getting a reboot, but by the next day it was debunked. After 2 months of studying this show, taking notes, watching the whole thing, reading about it online, I definitely recommend that you watch this. If you're feeling a nostalgic kick and you want to visit something that maybe you didn't give enough attention to the first time around, I definitely recommend As Told by Ginger. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I put out new videos. And leave me a comment letting me know what you thought about As Told by Ginger, your favorite characters, episodes you remember, and other cartoons you'd like to see me review. Thanks for watching. Bye. Someone once told me the grass is much greener on the other side. Well, I paid a visit, but it's possible I missed it. So different yet exactly the same. Yeah. Till further notice, I'm in between. From where I'm standing, my grass is green. Someone once told me the grass is much greener on the other side.